how to power through something that is challenging you, that is giving you pain and giving you anxiety. This is something that I have used many times throughout the years, and it's something that Navy SEALs use to get through buds. It's something that people will use to get through hard times, and I just kind of started doing it. Maybe my parents told me about it when I was a kid, but I don't remember necessarily. But I just started using it as a tool, as a mental tool to get through hard things. And some of the hard things that I came across, like in hockey, for example. We all go through hard times in our life, obviously, but subjecting yourself to a rigorous training program, or subjecting yourself to elite level training. And for me, it was hockey at a young age, and doing many things. And I remember as early as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, doing bag skating, we'd called it, when you do gauntlets or do suicides, and you would do things where you're skating into condition. And I hated it. I could not stand it. And I was always a bigger guy. I was a thick guy, and I was always a big guy. I was tall and thick, and I just kind of grew faster than everybody. And so I did not like it. And one of the things we would do, I was a strong kid though, and I prided myself in winning. I was competitive, and one of the things that I prided myself in was just being the best always. And it's what made me good, what brought me to professional hockey eventually, that attitude, that mindset. But one of the things was we would do this thing called like Army Crawl, or Army Walk, or I think my coach at Michigan State would call ROTCs, and you would get on your like toe picks. You would get down like in a push-up position on the ice with your stick across like this, like in a cross-check position. You on the ice like a push-up, and you have your toes on the ice, and you'd have to crawl all the way down the length of the ice. I remember starting to do that like as early as like 10 years old, and you have to do that at 10 or maybe a little before, and you'd have to get all the way to the other end of the ice, and guys would be dying. You'd be doing this at the end of practice, and then after you condition at the end of practice, and you have to do it. And you didn't want to be one of the stragglers. You didn't want to be the last guy for sure. You didn't want to be the last 5 or 10 guys doing it. So I always would make it a point to push myself, and I would keep changing the goalposts. I would keep moving the goalposts. So you get to, like in hockey, you have the blue lines, obviously the red line, the far blue line, and then the far goal lines. Those are kind of the big, if you're starting on one goal line, you have to get through those zones, right? And I would say, okay, just get to the red line. And I say, hey, if I can just get to the red line. A lot of guys would kind of like peter out around the first blue line or like the red line. And so I'm like, if I just get to the red line, and then as soon as I get close to like the first blue line, I would say, just make it to the far blue line. And I make it to the far blue line, and you kind of look around, and you might be the only one there. It might be one guy kind of near you, and that was it. And everyone else kind of stopped and waiting and taking their breath and stuff like that. The coach would be yelling at you. And there was many times where I would take a breath at the blue line for a second, and then I get going again. But there's a lot of times where I just kept going, and because I would say, just go to the goal line. Just go to the goal line. And you get to the goal line, and then you look up, and you're the only one there a lot of times, quite honestly, and you do it in a really good time. And another quick story, again, that has to do with hockey, keeping with sports, and that's why sports, I think, are so good at the end of the day, because they push you to your limits, they push you mentally, they push you physically. When I was at Michigan State, we would do the VO2 max testing, where they test your lung capacity and your metabolic rate, I think all these different things, your oxygen levels in your blood, and you would go on the treadmill, and you would go as long as you could until exhaustion, and you'd have like a team of people, sports scientists around you, all this stuff, students, they're doing stuff. It was really cool for everybody in a way, and a lot of students that were there, they have 5-10 people there, and you'd be on a treadmill, there'd be a bunch of people around you, and you would start at a slow, like you had to go rounds, and every round was 3 minutes, and the first round was like 1 mile an hour, 1 incline or something like that, and every 3 minutes it would raise up, and you would have a minute and a half rest in between every 3 minute sprint or session. And after each session, they would take your blood, they would prick your hand, your finger, and take your blood and sit you down and put the whole time you had the breathing apparatus in your mouth, so the big tube in your mouth, kind of like the headset, and it'd be taped to you. And so you had to sit down, they'd sit you in a chair, and they'd pick your finger, and they'd, you'd kind of talk in. It was kind of nice energy in there and stuff like that, because, everyone's kind of hooting and hollering and saying, like, let's go. And so getting to the fifth stage was always kind of where everyone fell out, basically, because it was like 8 incline, 7 miles an hour, or something like that. And then the sixth stage is like 9 incline, 10 miles an hour, or something like that, or 10 incline, or, vice versa. So you're already kind of going through this whole point, and it doesn't seem bad, right? But when you're doing the whole thing, and then you start getting there. So the fifth level is always where people peter out. There's only a handful of guys on our team that would get to the sixth stage every year. 2 guys ever that got to the 7th stage made it through 3 minutes of that, which was Sean Horkoff, I believe, and Duncan Keith, who were 2 in essence, all-star hockey players, but they grew up in Western Canada and trained in the mountains, kind of grew up in higher altitude. So they had a little bit of an advantage. That's, that was kind of like the lore, the two guys that made it in the seventh stage. So that was, I remember getting to do once or twice. I did one or two of them like with ease, not ease, but like it was kind of like, okay. But I remember two of the times, and one time specifically, where I was dying. I was a minute and a half in, I had a minute and a half to go in that fifth stage, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to die. And there's this picture, you're in the basement of one of the intramural facilities, one of the sports facilities, and there was a picture on the wall right in front of you. It was just like a wall, and there was a picture of a road, and it just kind of like narrows into nothing, right? This tunnel of trees, and it just goes into infinity. And I remember just like, it's just kind of like teasing you the whole time. And the guy, everyone's yelling, like, come on, Brandon, come on, Brandon, come on, Brandon. And I remember thinking, like, I can rest the rest of the day. That was the only thing we had going on that day. Like, you had slotted times, every like half an hour, every hour, someone would come in and do their VO2 max. And so it was slotted times. That's the only thing we had going on that day. Obviously, it takes a lot out of you. And I remember thinking, I can sit on the couch the rest of the day. And Brandon, this isn't that long. This isn't that bad. This pain is only temporary. This is not that bad. You can get through this. You can do anything you want after this. You can go have a milkshake and chicken nuggets, whatever, things you don't even like, things you don't even normally eat, whatever. You can go, watch whatever you want on TV. I remember this is going through my head as I'm doing this. Brandon, if you just do this, if you just get to that next blue line, if you just get to that red line, the goal line, if you just get to the sixth stage, if you just go another minute and a half, not that long. Minute and a half is like 1/10 of a TV show or 1/20th of a TV show or whatever. Like, this isn't, if you can watch a whole TV show, you can surely man up and get another minute and a half done of this, or else you will regret this the rest of your life. That is how I have utilized that philosophy, that mentality to do many things I didn't want to do in life and didn't like doing. I do that in just daily workouts, quite honestly, when I'm in reps or I'm in sets and I'm struggling. I don't want to do things, and my reps, my workouts aren't as intense as they used to be when I was 20 years old. But even now, I'm just like, hey, you get to see your wife and kids later. You get to see them later. You get to hug and kiss them. Like, just do this for them. You're doing this for them. You get to see them. You get to hang out. You can relax. You can lie on the floor with them and do whatever. And boy, oh boy, every single time you start with that mentality, that mindset, instead of thinking, oh, I can't do this. And what does your brain do? Your brain shuts down. Your brain shuts down. And that's where you've never heard of someone says, yeah, the brain just quit and the body just kept them going. Never. You're never going to hear that. That's not how life works. Life is mental. Life is 90% mental. Life is 99% mental and 1% physical. And it's true. It really is true. And I, unfortunately, spent a lot of my career, actually, my hockey career, on my physical part. I actually spent majority, probably 90% of my time on the physical and only 10% of the time in the mental. So I had it backwards. So I got to professional hockey, but I actually stunted myself for my entire career. I actually didn't go as far as my potential was because I wasn't focusing on the right things. And that was my own doing. I was very insular. I was very lone wolf training and mentality and things like that. So it was all my own doing, my own fault. And it was okay when you're a kid growing up, but once you get into professional hockey, juniors or college and professional, you have to start training with high level coaches and things like that. And I didn't do that. And I thought I knew more than most people, quite honestly, because I studied my butt off. I watched all the NHL film that I could and tape and games, and I watched everything and I trained my butt off. But it's a little nuances, it's a little mental things, little mental tricks in life, things like we just talked about today that make all the difference. If I would have known 10 more things like this or 100 more things like this and ways to get over coaches yelling at me or whatever it is, or a mistake on the ice. I hated making mistakes. I always wanted to be perfect, and that was one of my biggest downfalls. I want to be perfect. And hockey is a game of mistakes. Life is a game of mistakes. Business is a game of mistakes. You have to get over that. So it's something I've been correcting over the last 15 years in business and investing. And it's done very well. And I've been very successful because of learning those rules from hockey. But the biggest thing is move the goalposts. Move the goalposts. When you're doing something hard, you're going into something hard, just know, hey, you get into this and it gets tough, you can just keep moving the goalposts. And one last quick story. One of the guys I used to work with is a former Army Ranger, incredible guy. And he was on my real estate team, and he would talk about when they were in survival and evasion school and all that, and they would talk about I don't know if it was the survival invasion or if it was one of the other trainings, and guys would be like, I'm quitting, and they would just joke and say, you can quit tomorrow, just get through today, you can quit tomorrow, just quit tomorrow. And sure as heck, no one would quit the next day, because you get through that and you're like, okay, I can do it, I can keep going. So move the goalposts. You think you can do anything, and you're right. If you think you can't, you're right as well. Whatever you think is possible is. Move the goalpost, trick your brain. And that is really one of the keys to getting past. And it's your brain, it's your attitude, it's your mind that pushes you forward. When your body breaks down, when your body is gone, your body is given out, your brain will keep you going. So I appreciate you coming to my TED Talk. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, a beautiful weekend here in Michigan. Hopefully it's a beautiful area where you are as well, anywhere around the world. And please share this out, because the algorithm hates truth. The algorithm hates talking like this. Why is it that we aren't taught stuff like this in school? Why don't we talk about this? Why aren't we taught these things? Again, there's a reason. Just like we talk about money all the time here, I am obsessed with the mental part of life, and we're going to be talking more about that as well, actually, going forward. I'm going to be teaching my kids a lot of those things. We're going to be recording a lot of these things going forward and showing what we're doing. And it's something I'm obsessed with as well, because life is truly mental, very little physical. That's why people in wheelchairs can do much more than people that are able-bodied and completely fine, because it's all up here. It's up here. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Trust but verify, question everything with boldness, even the existence of God himself. And this is not financial advice, it's freedom advice. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.